This is the least expensive moped-style bike currently for sale on Amazon. It's the Cycrown CycRun. It's got full suspension, it goes 20 miles per hour, and it's only $539. Can a bike this cheap actually be any good or any fun? Today, let's take this for a ride and find out. This is the Cycrown CycRun, a moped-style fat tire e-bike with a 750-watt hub motor, an abundance of yellow stickers, a giant motorcycle headlight, and hopes and dreams of becoming a motorcycle one day. One can dream, right? So this channel primarily focuses on cars, but I've started featuring some e-bike reviews because these machines have opened up a whole new world of possibilities in terms of getting around. Now there's a ton of different types of e-bikes, folding, cargo, commuting, and these moped-style bikes. And a huge range of prices from high-end bikes like the Super 73 S2 down to something like this, where you might be wondering what they had to skimp on to make the bike so cheap. But we'll do our due diligence to investigate. Is a cheap e-bike like this one decent to ride and own? Today, let's find out. So this e-bike was shipped to me in a relatively large box. Everything was packed pretty well. The assembly process should have been mostly straightforward, but the cables and wires up front were routed on the wrong side of the handlebars. So I had to disconnect them and route them the proper way. Aside from that, everything else came together pretty quickly. But it's always a good idea to check over everything on a new bike, especially the headset and the brakes before riding. And maybe triple check everything on something this inexpensive. All right, so let's do a walk around of this super affordable e-bike and check out all of the features and specs. Now we've got a decent looking moped-inspired design going on here. I did notice that all of the frame tubing here looks pretty thin. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's certainly less robust than some of the pricier e-bikes I've ridden. But that's to be expected at this price point. Coming in at 61 inches, it's not quite as long as other moped-style e-bikes I've ridden. Now this is a 36-volt bike. It's got an unbranded 750-watt motor, which is rated at 60 Newton-meters of torque. Down here, we've got a 10.4 amp hour battery, which is on the smaller side for a bike this heavy. They say it's UL certified, and there's a power switch for the battery on the side. Cycrown says this bike can travel 30 to 38 miles using pedal assist, and usually manufacturer claims are often optimistic, so we'll test this. Top speed appears to be 20 miles per hour, but we'll also test that out. This bike is pretty hefty and weighs in at almost 77 pounds. They do rate the payload capacity at 330 pounds, which also seems a bit optimistic, but maybe it's possible. No shifter up here because there's just one gear available to us. There's 5 levels of pedal assist, and this bike uses the typical cadence sensor for the motor. Twist throttle on the right side of these cool looking BMX style handlebars. We've got unbranded brakes here. They're cable operated and utilize 160mm rotors. We'll do a brake test to see how they do. Suspension up front that doesn't appear to be adjustable, and a very simple rear suspension. A really nice looking faux leather seat. This is one of the nicest features of this bike. It looks great. There's no real space for any cargo here, but that's usually the case for these moped style bikes. 20x4 Chow Yang fat tires running on spoke wheels. Plastic fenders front and rear. Simple to use and compact display. A very large motorcycle style headlight, a tail light, no bell, but it does have a horn or a beeper, and it has turn signals, which is a nice feature for a bike at this price point. And this CycRun comes with a 2-year warranty. All right, so today let's ride this thing around my neighborhood and see how it does. We'll also see if we can find some dirt to find how well this thing does on some trails. All right, let's go. All right, so yeah, not a lot of torque. If I give it a little push start, I think we should be good to go. There we go. All right, so this is a 36-volt bike, so it's not gonna be as powerful as some of those 48-volt or beyond bikes. But we do have a 750-watt hub motor back there. But as we already saw, not a whole lot of torque. We're on pretty level ground right here. Let's do an acceleration test using the throttle only. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, we're at 12 miles an hour, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. So yeah, this is not a quick bike, but if you give it a little pedaling to get yourself a head start, it's fine. So we do have 5 levels of pedal assist here, and when you got it on 0, there's no assist, and that's where you can really feel the weight of this bike. This is a pretty heavy bike, but nobody's gonna be riding this on pedal assist 0. You have no gears, so might as well crank it up. So pedal assist 1, can't really feel it. 2, it's coming on a little bit. Let's just crank it all the way up to 5. Yeah, and once you get going about 17 miles an hour, the pedals just sort of become useless. But that's the case with a lot of moped style bikes that only have one gear. Now, one thing to keep in mind with these cadence sensor bikes, sometimes there's like a 1 to 3 second delay before the motor kicks in when you're pedaling. And then when you stop pedaling, usually like a half a second to a second delay for the motor to turn off. You know, that's not the greatest, but it is something that you get used to. And a lot of inexpensive e-bikes with cadence sensors exhibit this behavior. Now we're coming up on a stop sign, so I want to do a brake test on this thing. Now this has 160 millimeter rotors, which is on the smaller side, and it's cable operated, not hydraulic here. So we'll see how it does. All right, so I'm gonna slam on the brakes. We're going 20 miles an hour. 3, 2, 1. If you really crank on them, the bike stops fine. You know, to keep the bike at this price point, I understand why they didn't include hydraulic brakes. It would be nice to have, but these work reasonably well. So this bike cannot be unlocked to go 28 miles per hour, which I think is a good thing considering the brakes on this thing. Yeah, I would prefer 28 miles per hour when I'm riding alongside cars, but I think 20 is a reasonable speed for this bike. One other thing to keep in mind when you're pedaling a moped-style e-bike like this is that the pedaling position isn't exactly all that natural. I wouldn't expect that you're going to be using the pedals on this a whole lot unless you're on a slow bike path or your battery runs out of juice. I think a lot of the time you're going to just want to use the throttle. All right, so let's do a hill test. This is a pretty steep grade right here. 3, 2, 1, go. It's going, it's going. 5 miles an hour, 6, 7, 8. It's not happy about it, but it's doing it. 10, there we go. My battery's down to 2 bars. I think that's just because I'm asking so much out of this little motor. Why don't I give it a little pedal to help it out a little bit here? I guess I should get a little bit of exercise today, right? So one thing that I really like about this bike is that it feels very stable. And I think that could be due to the fact that it's a pretty heavy bike. I'm gonna head on to the sidewalk because people around here drive like maniacs. And thankfully, the city of Los Angeles allows you to ride bikes on the sidewalk. Unfortunately, most of the sidewalks around here are terrible, poorly maintained. But obviously when I'm riding on the sidewalk, I'm not gonna be doing pedal assist 5. I'll probably crank it down to like 1. Now, riding on this very bumpy, bouncy sidewalk is a good time to talk about comfort. I'd say one of the best things about this bike is this seat. It's extremely comfortable. And we've got that suspension up front and that little tiny suspension component in the rear. And yeah, this is pretty comfortable over these bumps. I'm actually kind of surprised, but I think the seat is doing a lot of the work here. It is just fantastic. The handlebars are in a pretty good position, and obviously these are adjustable. The grips aren't the most comfortable, but that's something you can swap out easily if you want. Yeah, in terms of stability, it's really good. I think a lot of that has to do with the 77-pound weight of this bike. But yeah, it feels pretty solid. Now, the front of this bike does feel a little bit heavy, but that's often the case with these fat tire style e-bikes. And it's got a twist throttle on the right. That's not my favorite. I prefer the thumb throttle, but you know, it does the job. Okay, so some of the marketing for this bike shows people taking this thing onto dirt, sort of bombing down some dirt trails. So why don't we see if we can find some dirt around here? I'm pretty sure this park over here has a couple spots of dirt we can check out. And after that, we'll talk about range and see how much juice this battery has left. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, so there's nothing too challenging here. There's not a lot of sand or anything like that. Just a little stretch of dirt. Let's see how it does. Here we go. It's kind of fun. Although I don't think there's a whole lot of grip going on with these tires. It's a little slippery. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Yeah, and actually the suspension does a pretty good job of soaking up the bumps, especially in the back there. I think if the front was adjustable, it would probably do a little bit better of a job. Let's go down this trail one more time because why not? 20 miles per hour feels plenty fast when you're on a trail like this. Let's go over some of these bumps. See what this is like. Oh, okay, yeah, this is where you want adjustable suspension. Oh. It actually can get through here, which I'm kind of surprised about. Oh my God. It's so stupid how much fun that is. I mean, honestly, anything with a motor can be fun on something like that. That was an insane amount of fun on a $500 bike. This is not a quick bike, but you can have some fun with it. And I actually think that it being low power is probably pretty good for the target audience of this bike. This would probably be something really good for a young kid to bomb around on some dirt trails behind their house. But you know, I think it's important to understand the limitations of a bike like this and not think that you're riding a Super 73 or something like that. And to really keep an eye on things like the brakes, any kind of components that might wear out. Because a bike that's this inexpensive, you probably should take a little bit of extra precaution when it comes to safety. We've done 6 miles so far. It looks like we've got 3 bars left on the battery. You know, obviously that's kind of a vague estimate in terms of how much range we have. All right, let's just keep doing throttle only all the way home and see how many miles we get out of this thing. I think I can make it. I guess we'll find out. All right, so I've done a little bit of pedaling today, mostly throttle only riding. I've done 12 miles, I've got 1 bar in the battery left. So I think maybe I might be able to eke out like 15 miles out of this thing, maybe 16. And of course, if you're pedaling, you'll get a lot more. All right, so this is the cheapest e-bike that I've ever ridden. This is currently on Amazon for $539. That's not a lot of money for an e-bike. Though I have seen a slightly higher price on Cycrown's website. Now, obviously, if you're considering a sub $600 e-bike, chances are you're not even remotely considering some of the other high-end moped-style bikes like the Super 73 S2, which will run you nearly $3 grand. But you should be aware that the only way a company can hit this incredibly low price point is by removing some capability or using less expensive components. Cable brakes instead of hydraulic, 36-volt system instead of 48, smaller battery, thinner tubing, cheaper display. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you correctly set your expectations for a bike this cheap and don't ask it to do anything that it really shouldn't be doing. Would I want to commute on this bike? No, not really. But it could be a useful bike to get around a campground, or for your teenager to tool around the neighborhood, or to just bomb around on some easy trails. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. If you want to help support the channel, please buy a Hello Road t-shirt at helloroad.tv/shop. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I'll see you soon.